Started, perhaps.
Yes. Okay, welcome everybody. David has started the record button. We do record our video or our meetings so we can share them as part of our public relations and social media outlook. The video is shared within the group for member education purposes. The function of this club is learning skills for better webinars and online events. We want to thank RingCentral for hosting this meeting or providing the tools. Compliments of David Carr. RingCentral is winning in the cloud. Some meeting tips is use a headset or earbuds if you can, or sound deadening microphones or softening microphones. You can toggle your video on and off or your microphone on and off. The controls are in the lower left-hand corner of your screen for the microphone and the video. So you can turn your video off if you're going to do something that might be distracting to others. In the upper right-hand corner, you have a control of how you want to view. You want to view, have a speaker view or a gallery view of everybody. You can control that yourself. Please watch the timer. Make sure you know who the timer is. So you can look for the timing cues. The timer usually will try to use an audible signal also to help recognize, and it's a good idea if you use your own timing device. In case you can't find the timer, you can keep track of your own time using your smartphone or some other timing device. If you want to join the club, we have a button on our website to hit join. We do require members to have at least 6 Toastmasters speeches completed and make a 1 to 2 minute speech, like a table topics of why they want to join the club. We can make exceptions for some people that have other speaking experience other than Toastmasters. And now it's time for the meeting. And I'll stop sharing and we'll turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster tonight, David Carr. David?
All right, terrific. Thank you, Jimmy. Actually, just to clarify, that policy evolved a little bit on new members. It's really if somebody doesn't have the usual minimum qualifications, that we ask them to make a 1 to 2 minute speech, and then we vote, and it requires a majority of the board, and blah 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 blah. Generally, if people want to come in and we think they're a good addition, we'll get them in. So my job as Toastmaster is to run an organized meeting. We're off to a little bit of a rocky start in that department, but we're going to get there. We have an R counter. Sunny, can you explain to us, remind us what the R counter does?
Certainly, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. The purpose of the odd counter is to note words and sounds that are used as crutch or pause filler by anyone who speaks. During the meeting, I'll listen for words that may be inappropriate expressions such as well, so, you know. Sounds may be I'll also note when a speaker repeats a word or a phrase such as I, or this means, this is called a clutch, double clutch. And at the end of the meeting, I will report the number of times each person has used these expressions. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Back to you.
All right. Be gentle with me, Sonny. Timer, Lewis Brown.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, as timer, I'll be keeping track of everyone's speech timing, speakers, evaluators, and table topics people. I will be making a report at the end of the meeting. All times vary. Everyone should know them since we are seasoned Toastmasters, so I won't announce them. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. We have a grammarian this evening, which is Jim Barber. Jim, I guess you can also tell us about the word of the day, if you saw that.
With pleasure, Mr. Toastmaster. I apologize in advance. I reorganized my office today and I'm having a lot of trouble finding where I put things like the mouse and the keyboard and things like that. So let's see, as grammarian this evening, I'm going to be listening intently to what everybody says, and not just the speakers, but everybody, table topics or whatever, and I'm going to be listening for egregious uses of the English language or exceptional uses of the English language. And I will report on these at the end of the meeting. Our word of the day is fruition, which is, I was looking up as I was called upon. Fruition is the pleasurable use or possession, enjoyment, the state of bearing fruit or the realization. You would bring a project to fruition, for example. That's our word of the day. See what you can do with it. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. I neglected to mention that we also have a meeting theme, which is National Root Beer Float Day. So I guess there's a day for everything. If you can manage to work either fruition or root beer into your table topics, you'll win some kind of virtual prize. We have also a watcher. Adrian, what does the watcher do in this club?
Hello, it is my job to see what you're doing during the meeting, how your background is, what's going on in your background. Do you have people walking by? Are you not paying attention? Are you distracted? That is my job. And at the end of the meeting, I'll give you a report. So you've had a heads up. So be careful to what you're doing. Thank you.
All right.
Back to you, Mr.
Let's see. Vote counter, Norman. Thank you for signing up, Norman.
You're welcome, David. I'll be counting the votes for table topics, speakers, if we have two. I think we have one right now. And for the evaluator, best evaluator, as long as the people are within the confines of the time.
Okay. And chat monitor. Also, we drafted Michael at the last minute to do that. And what will you be watching for in the chat, Michael?
I'll be keeping an eye on everything that's posted and take note of anything significant to mention it at the end of the session.
All right.
Pretty good. That is a function, I think.
Yeah,
I believe.
Pretty good for a guy who got drafted at the very last minute, the first time he came here. So thank you very much.
Not at all. Let's
say, do we have somebody who wants to speak tonight at the very last moment? Because it looks like our speaker number 2 is not here.
I can give a practice speech, David, if we need one.
All right. You can text me as we go along with any speech title or any introductory information you want to give me. But with that,
okay.
let's move on to our first speaker.
David, does
Yes?
that put me back in as evaluator, or is someone else evaluating Jimmy?
Yeah, you should evaluate Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Just confirming.
Let's do that. All right. Dagmara is doing the presentation, the Competent Communication Project, Yet Comfortable Visual Aids. We're all visual aids here. Well, we do some talking too. And her speech title is Silver Lining. We face a hardship, well, when we face a hardship in our love relationships, I was just going to make it a statement because there's always a hardship in our love relationships. What is the best strategy to move forward and stay positive? One of them is definitely searching for a silver lining. Dagmara, you're on.
I hope you can see my presentation. Okay. Fellow Toastmasters, today I will be speaking about the silver lining in our love relationships. Have you ever felt so depressed and so discouraged that you just couldn't breathe? I'm sure all of us found ourselves at least once in this very dark, gloomy, awful place. And I'm also sure there were many reasons for that. But one of the reasons that probably hit us the most is the pain of a broken heart. Our relationship build us. They define who we are, but they also can break us. That's why today I want to talk about how to define odds in our love relationships. And in other words, what to do when the things are not going so well. Sorry, it doesn't go. Let's try. Okay, sorry for that, guys. So the one thing that we can do in this situation is looking for the silver lining. The silver lining, in other words, is just to searching for a hidden good in things, is searching for the flip side, is searching for a bright side of life, even when bad things are happening in our personal life. So, fellow Toastmasters, why is it so important to look for a silver lining? It is important because it helps us to move forward. It speeds up our progress and learning from our mistakes. So it is very important to use this approach when things are not going right in our personal life. Today, I want to talk about 3 things that we should consider when we are searching for a silver lining in our love relationships. First thing is, searching for a silver lining can help us to reevaluate our life. Have you ever felt like your relationship is going so well? It's perfect. The communication between you, it's great. You never fight. And then suddenly, boom, huge explosion, terrible breakup, unexpected, awful divorce. You are shocked and you don't know what to do. And then you start thinking, maybe we didn't fight because I didn't voice my opinion. Or maybe we didn't fight because I was just not honest. I didn't want to say my true feelings, etc., etc. So you need to force yourself in this very bad, dramatic situation and very unexpected situations to reevaluate your life through the lenses of your love relationships. This is something that will help you to move forward, learn more, and learn faster. The second thing that we should consider while we thinking about and trying to use the silver lining approach in our love relationship is, can we recognize our emotional growth? Let's be honest, sometimes we face situations that we cannot find silver lining in at all. They are not good at all, like the death of a close person, of a loved one. What's good about this, right? So we cannot just sit and evaluate. We need to search for something deeper. And maybe in this very dramatic situation that are totally out of our control, maybe our silver lining could be growth. emotional, or spiritual. Maybe thanks to this very sad situation, we grew closer to other people. We get connected to other human beings that experience the loss of a close one. So we can relate, we can understand their experiences. So that's a very important point to remember here. The third thing about searching silver lining is to being able to recognize silver lining, the difference between silver lining and delusional optimism, because there are two really different things. Silver lining is about searching bright sides in a very bad, awful situations, but also acknowledging that our understanding what really happened, understanding the facts behind what really happened. Whereas delusional optimism is just like wearing these pink glasses and being high all the time and saying, don't worry, be happy, we can make it, no hard feelings. So it's like denying what really happened and not really seeing the facts behind the bad situation. So fellow Toastmasters, silver lining is a great approach that can help you in your personal life and in your love relationship. But you just need to remember, this is a special superpower that you need to use with a caution. And especially in situation when you're very close to being delusional. Because without understanding what really went wrong, you won't learn on your past experiences. So it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Red.
All right. Great job, Dagmara. All right, our second speaker of the evening. This title, to me, sounds like it also could also be about love relationships, but may or may not be. We'll find out in a moment. Jimmy Dent's title for this evening is You Knew What I Meant, or You Knew What I Meant, or something along those lines. This is the Dynamic Leader Understanding Your Communication Style speech from Pathways. Jimmy Dent, you are on.
Okay, thank you. This is my practice speech for this coming weekend. How many of you have ever said something that just didn't come out the way you meant it to mean? Somebody interpreted it differently. Raise your hand. It's quite a common thing. I grew up in a fine dining Italian restaurant that my father owned, and my father spoke somewhat broken English, so he wasn't a master of the English language, especially grammar-wise. And my father's famous saying was, I don't care what I said, you knew what I meant. And I can't count how many times he said that, but I know other people have done the same thing. It's not unique to him. And as time went on, I found out I was doing the same thing, especially around my own family and around my wife. So in your communication style, the words you choose can greatly affect how your message is being interpreted. So one example is I've learned in my 30 plus years of marriage is if I said to my wife, wow, honey, that red dress looks great on you. Well, from my viewpoint, it sounds like a compliment. But my daughter is the one that corrected me. She was in middle school and she was taking English classes on communication style and grammar. And she told me that I was insulting my wife. The way I said the sentence was, I could have been saying, wow, the moon is really bright tonight. because the subject of my statement was not my wife, it was the dress. And it could have meant that dress looks good on anybody or anything, even on the hanger. So she corrected me and said, I should have said, wow, honey, you make that dress look good. So to me, it's a word choice and a sentence structure. Make sure when you're communicating to somebody, you've got the proper noun and the proper subject of the message, and don't turn them around backwards. Another example is, it's happened to me several times over the years, I'll send my wife flowers just out of a whim. And of course, she comes back and says, well, why'd you send me flowers? And without thinking, I say, well, I was thinking of you. Now, does anybody know what her response would have been to that? Her response is, what? You're not always thinking of me? So, have a specific reason why you gave flowers. It's a special day. You're maybe using it as an apology for something. Something you said before that misunderstood, or something special about her day. I've learned that don't say, well, I think you weren't feeling good, so I thought this would pick you up, because she might not have been feeling good. So that's kind of the wrong message too. So you be careful with the words when you try to explain something. Another example is, often my wife and I would get into little spats or tiffs with each other over miscommunication. And one of us would not talk to the other. And that happened one time where all day long, I wouldn't talk to her and she wouldn't talk to me. We wrote each other little notes. So when we're going to bed that night, she was in the bathroom getting ready for bed. And I had to go on a trip the next morning, leave early, to go off to a Toastmasters meeting about 2 hours away, or Toastmasters TLI. So I left a note on her pillow because I didn't want to talk to her. And I said, please wake me up at 5 a.m. I have to be on the road by 5:30. So the next morning I woke up and it's 7 a.m. And I could hear my wife downstairs in the kitchen, and I'm ready to head downstairs and yell at her for not waking me up. And then I saw a note on the nightstand next to my side of the bed, next to the alarm clock. And the note said, wake up, it's 5 a.m. So that's a case where you let your emotions control how you communicate to each other. So it's very important to how you communicate. The key things is choose your words wisely and make sure the subject of your sentence or noun is truly the subject that expresses the message you want to send. Make sure you give a good explanation when you're telling somebody what you want them to do or why you did something, such as with the flowers. And the last point to remember is, don't let your emotions control how you communicate to somebody. The old adage of stop and think and count to 10 and communicate properly is very important if you want to get up at 5 in the morning. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, Jim. Let us know when you get it figured out, okay? I think a few of us might need some clues on this department. All right, Mr. Timer, did our speakers speak within their time limits?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, both speakers qualify.
Right.
I'll post the times in the chat box.
Very well. All right, so please vote for Dagmara or Jimmy as our speaker of the day. And Jimmy doesn't get much rest because he's up next as our topics master. Jimmy, give us all a workout.
Okay, well, the theme tonight is root beer float. I guess it's National Root Beer Float Day today, August 6th. And to me, root beer floats remind me of something refreshing and cool for the hot summer days, or just a delicious dessert that's carbonated and yet has ice cream in it, so it becomes creamy. So my first question is going to be, what would be your favorite summertime drink to cool yourself off on a hot day? And I'll ask that to Jim Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master, my fellow Toastmasters. What is my favorite drink on a hot summer's day? The reputation, the carefully cultivated reputation that I have would require me to answer an ice cold beer. You can't do better than an ice cold beer on a hot summer day. Of course, generally when people talk about root beer floats, they're thinking of childhood, and I didn't consume that much beer when I was a child. I didn't consume that much root beer floats either. Actually, I was a Coca-Cola kid. To me, getting a 5-cent bottle of Coca-Cola was just the ideal thing, and that's what I looked forward to, and that was the way that I quenched my thirst on a hot summer day. But let's be truthful here. I'm not a child anymore. I am an adult, and I want to be honest with you. Frankly, the best drink that I can have to quench my thirst on a hot summer day is a nice cold glass of water. I wish you wouldn't repeat that to everybody else, because I've cultivated my beer drinking reputation, but honestly, among you, water is the best thing. It tastes great. It's good for me. It's the way to go, Mr. Topics Master.
Yeah, my next question would be, it's a hot summer day, the sun is beating down, you're sweating outside. What would you prefer to do to cool off? And I will ask that of Sunny.
It's a hot day. What would I do to cool off? Fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Table Topics Master, living here in the Mississippi heat certainly lends itself to cooling yourself off. For me, I typically stay inside under the cool air conditioning in my home. Another way that I choose to cool off, however, is drinking Arnold Palmer's lemonade iced tea. I just love those drinks, and they really can cool me off in the summer. I'll sit under my porch with the fan going, reading a wonderful romance novel, and it takes me away to another time, and I forget about the heat as long as I have that iced tea, lemonade, and sometimes I'll have some cookies as well. But I'll tell you, Mississippi is known for its heat. So if you ever visit down here, make sure you bring a fan and probably a 6-pack of beer like Jim was talking about it. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you. The next question is, you're outside, you're at a carnival, it's hot, everybody's enjoying themselves, and you see people with ice cream cones or ice cream dishes at one of the food stands, and you're just dying for something cold. but then you realize you check your purse and you don't have enough money. What would you do to get an ice cream cone or an ice cream dish to cool yourself off? Adrian.
That is a very interesting question. We've all been in that situation where we haven't had enough money to pay for something. And what do? Do you go and order the cone anyway? Or do you offer to work for food? I think it would be pretty easy to find a sign and hold it up and say, we'll work for food. I can see myself now holding this sign up for the ice cream because I have a problem asking people for money when I need something. So I probably would not be the person that would say, hey, I'm going to get this ice cream and then try to manipulate the person to pay for it. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with doing that. I would just say, listen, I came to get an ice cream. I am short 30 cents. Is there a way that I can write out you an IOU note to have this ice cream, come back tomorrow, give you the balance of the money that I owe because I can't take something that I haven't paid for? I would be very adamant about how I'm very reliable, I'm loyal, I'm consistent, I'm dependable. I would even have 3 references for him that I can guarantee that I will come back and bring you the money that I owe you for the balance of my ice cream cone. And then since I have an accounting degree, I would talk to him about receivables. And if he couldn't really wait till tomorrow to get the money, he can actually use one of those funding companies and get an advance on his receivables, and they would pay him overnight with the money for the ice cream cone. And if he would agree to that, I would buy me an ice cream cone. I would buy you an ice cream cone. Everybody would get an ice cream cone because it would be my day to pay it forward for the ice cream cone that I really couldn't afford, but I seem to have negotiated to get it anyway. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Would one of our visitors like to try Table Topics? Raise your hand if you'd like to try it. Okay, Michael, we'll give this one to you. So you're outside, it's hot, and you see some kids, some little children, maybe 6 to 8 years old, at an ice cream stand. And they're buying ice cream, but one of the children doesn't have any money, and the other children don't have any money left to buy the one child an ice cream. So the other children are having ice cream. What would you do when you see a situation like that?
I think there's no question you'd have to come forward and fork out the money, whatever it is, for the small kid. I think as we go back in the years, when I try and go back when I was very small, there's certain things in life that are so important, perhaps insignificant when you actually see what happens, but being able to enjoy that with your friends. If you're not able to do it, if you're not able to eat ice cream when your buddies are doing it, you kind of feel left out. And I think life is going to bring you enough worries over time, enough problems that you're going to have to face to not be able to confront those situations when they turn up. You have to come in and you have to help them out. I believe that giving is very often more important than receiving. And I'm sure that just to see the kid's expression, see the look in his face when you were able to give the money and be able to give him the ice cream, it would be an enormous satisfaction. It would make your day. I'm convinced that that evening you would sleep very well. And I think we have to be grateful in life when you get those opportunities that you can chip in and some way or other come up and be able to help in some fashion. You don't get those chances every day. And I think when they do come along, you have to find the way of taking the opportunity and taking advantage of them. Topics master of the day. Thank you.
Okay, was there another guest that wanted to? I think, Ryan, did you have your hand up? Okay, here's another question. It's a hot day and you're just thirsty. Would you prefer a glass of cold water with ice or a warm glass of water that's right around 100 degrees? A 100 degrees Fahrenheit, that is.
Topics master, fellow Toastmasters, what would I prefer? An ice cold drink of water or a nice toasty glass of water? Well, one thing I've recently started to do is bring my water with me in my vehicle. And because it's hot, it pretty much turns my water into tea. I've been oftentimes thinking about maybe bringing some tea bags and just sticking it into the water bottles because it's been that hot. I'd have to say that I don't enjoy frozen drinks. It seems like it messes with your guts or something, but I find that the frozen drinks kind of impact me in a bad way. Room temperature is beautiful. If I had a choice, I would definitely use the warm water because that's already the temperature that our stomach is at. And I've definitely done some reading to find out that an instant shock or cold shock to your guts is not really that refreshing. If anything, it's kind of damaging. But for some reason, you add a little bit of sugar to that drink, I'm all about it. I can suck back a Slurpee or whatever, and I just get the brain freeze. And to get rid of the brain freeze, I'll drink even faster and try to kill the brain freeze. So if there's sugar in that water, nothing will stop me. But for some reason, I'm picky when it's just pure, clean water. So to answer that question, I believe that's a green I'm getting up there from Lou, is I would prefer the boiling, nasty water over the freezing, delightful water. Thank you.
Thank you. I have found that to be true. My brother tipped me off to it. He's a doctor. He told me if you drink water on a really hot day that's body temperature, right around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it actually cools you off better than drinking ice cold water, because when you dump ice cold water into your stomach, your body wants to bring the temperature back up to 98.6. So it generates heat, which makes you hotter. Although the cold water feels good, it doesn't last long. Let's see, do we have time for any more?
I think we could do one more because this is a great little marathon. One more.
Okay, one more. Okay, next question is there another visitor that wants to try it? Raise your hand. Claudio or
I was going to get Joe to volunteer for something, so he could volunteer for this.
Okay, Joe? Okay, here's the question. What would be your favorite drink on a hot day while you're eating a very hot meal or dinner?
Well, thank you, Mr. Topics Master, because believe it or not, I love hot food. I love my food smoking hot. As a matter of fact, my favorite burger from Five Guys is a bacon double cheeseburger with raw onions, hot peppers, and double jalapenos. Yes. I mean, there is nothing like that flame on feeling in the side of your mouth. And then to chase that down with just some warm water. It keeps that fire rolling. So the entire time when you're sniffling and the tears are running down, you get no break. It's some form of a diet program so that your 1,000-calorie cheeseburger can last for about 25 minutes. So it extends the eating time so you won't need to get French fries. These are very strategic points to think about when you're having hot food and warm water. So that was so perfect of a question for me because I just love the fire to help me slow down and eat my hot smoking burger slowly. Thank you, Mr. Topics Master.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
excellent.
Okay, I think that's it. Mr. Timer, have you, is
Yes, all
everybody
speakers
within
qualified.
time?
All speakers
Good.
qualified, Mr. Toastmaster.
All
Or
right.
Mr.
Great,
Topics
thank
Master,
you.
sorry.
Okay. If you read them all off, we'd be here all night. But actually, we should, actually, do we have the complete list so people know when they're voting? We got to send our votes to Norman. Do you happen to have the list, Lou, of everybody who spoke?
I do. I was just posting in the chat room, but in the
You don't have
public
to read the times, just
Nope.
the
Right.
names.
Jim B, Sonny, Adrian, Michael, Ryan, and Joe.
All right. So send a vote over to Norman. You can use the private feature of the chat for those who are here for the first time. Guests are welcome to vote too, since we're about half guests tonight, which is unusual, but it's wonderful. So we're now at the evaluations portion of the meeting. First up to evaluate Dagmara, we have Monica, just back from some computer problems, but she made it back. Welcome.
Thank you, David. Fellow Toastmasters, guest, Dagmara. Your speech was titled The Silver Lining, and I thought that was very interesting. I was looking to see how you were going to tell us about the silver lining, and you introduced us to 3 things to consider. I love the way you started off the PowerPoint with the small person in the very center of your screen. And then your next one was the stick figure that had crumpled and it had a heart. And you could really get the message that we were going to talk about the lines of love. And your 3 things to consider, you had to search to reevaluate your life. And that's always a good thing to do, even without a broken heart sometimes, is to really take a look at everything. Growing emotionally was your other one. And then you talked about the silver lining versus delusional optimism. I loved your reference to the pink glasses. I thought that was very interesting because a lot of times we want to see things through rose-colored glasses, and that's not always the way we need to see things. You, like I did, had a glitch with technology. Unfortunately, I could go on a tirade about that, but I've only got 2 to 3 minutes, so I will stop right now. One thing that maybe could help you, and I've done this before, not only watch the recordings back from when David or Jim sends it out, but also I sign into Zoom and I do a practice run for just myself, just like I was having a meeting or whatever. And then I do a practice run to try to run through to see if I can make things work. You did use your PowerPoint, which was getting comfortable with visual aids. I think once you got it going, it was very well thought out as far as the sequence that you showed us what to consider. You were very clear on what your point was with this presentation. And I thought you also had obviously well researched this. Sorry, I hit the mute. I don't know at what point I hit it. Okay, I want to turn it back over to General Evaluator.
Okay. I think we only missed a second or so there. Monica, if you have is there any point that you wanted to make sure you made?
I think I got them all.
Okay. All right. All right. Our next evaluator helping out with Jimmy's speech tonight is Lois Margolin. Lois.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day. My fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest, and most especially, Jimmy. You knew what I meant. I like this speech. This is a speech about understanding communication styles. You had 3 really fun topics. The red dress, sending your wife flowers, miscommunication, no talking. I do have to tell you on the 3rd one, all I could hear was my mother saying, never go to bed mad. You always should be talking when you go to bed. And I can see Monica shaking her head. Yep, my mom said the same thing. What did I really like about this speech? I loved the irony of the 3 topics that you brought up. I liked the red dress because you could also have had your daughter say, Dad, you're telling Mom that she has a really nice red dress. She looks great. Well, what about her blue dress and her green dress? It can be totally misconstrued when you start bringing that in. Sending your wife flowers. The first thing I thought was, why? David asked, are you apologizing? Because anytime you send flowers out of the blue, everyone starts thinking, okay, there's got to be a reason, there's got to be a reason, there's got to be a reason. I liked your speech. I thought you had some good points. What could you have done that might have made this a little bit stronger? I would have added humor. I thought this had a really good opportunity to have humor. I love my wife, but I just can't win. It doesn't matter what I do. I tell my wife, I love that red dress you're wearing. And I'm getting my subject and my pronoun or my noun. It doesn't matter. I have it wrong. And then I start thinking, well, maybe I should say I love the blue dress too, and the green dress and the orange dress. And where does it stop? Sending your wife flowers. Always a bad thing to do if you don't have a good plan to explain why you're doing this. Overall, I thought your speech came to fruition. It was well done. I would just add a little more humor, some vocal variety, because it was pretty flat on that. And the only other thing technically I would question is I didn't see a communication style that you were talking about. I saw how we can mess up with communication. But if there's a specific style and I have not done this section yet, I missed it. So that's the only thing is if you have a style, maybe we need to understand that up front. But I really liked the speech. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. And you kept my attention the whole time. Thank you. And let us know how it goes on Saturday, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Excellent. Let's see. Where are we on time? Well, we're about 10 of. We asked Ryan to step in as our general evaluator today. So he is pinch hitting. We don't give the general evaluator that much to do in this club, but give us your impressions and maybe some things that you thought some of the other evaluators and functionaries might have missed along the way. And I'll call for the different reports after that, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I think these online platforms would be pretty challenging to put all this together. So to throw a shout out to say that you guys do a really good job of making all this happen in such a short amount of time and orchestrating everybody. So I thought that was really good about today's meeting. One of the things that I noticed, again, pretty new to this, so this might not be a valid comment, but I noticed during the first speech, everybody was listening quite well. And during the second speech, there's a lot of comments coming in while the second speaker is speaking. And I wonder a little bit about, in Toastmasters, we have to work on our listening skills and paying really good attention and attentive listening. And I'd be challenged to say that I could make comments while I was actually attentively listening to the second speaker. So one thing I did kind of notice was, again, the commenting for the first speaker happening during the second speaker. And maybe a challenge would be to maybe keep the chats when people are presenting, no chats while people are presenting, and then you save those comments for after when there's a little bit of commentary happening. Again, I don't know if that actually works or if that's a good or bad idea, but that was one thing I noticed. And lastly, just including the guests into the table topics tonight was a nice touch. Last time I was on, we never had that opportunity, and I think the guests definitely appreciate a chance to talk to all you guys, and you guys get to know us a little bit better, of course, answering these questions. And lastly, I'd noticed, because I've been part of 2 table topics, I think one was surrounding restaurants and lasagna, and today was about root beer and ice cream. So I'd have to say that our table topics masters are pretty hungry. We got to get them some snacks. Other than that, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. And I think you're right. There is a trade-off in the use of the chat. It's an additional channel of communication, but it can be sort of like passing notes in class. So I guess we should try and keep it under control as well. Let us have a report from our grammarian. That was Jim Barber, correct? There he is.
Correct. Yes, indeed, Mr. Toastmaster. Let's see. First of all, thanks to Jim Dent, his presentation itself was a wonderful description of what the grammarian does. He talked about the words that you choose are important, and that's exactly what I'm talking about tonight. The word of the day was fruition. Everyone who used the word of the day, fruition, used it so smoothly, so adroitly that I missed it completely. So I have no idea who did that. Let's see. We did some great phrases. Sonny, you used the phrase, "It takes me away to another time." I like that. Very descriptive. Joe, you talked about the flame on feeling. That was also very descriptive. But the best kudos go to Dagmara. I loved your phrase, delusional optimism. That is one of the foundations of my life, but nevertheless, delusional optimism, I love that. Dagmara, as long as I'm on you, I have a suggestion. This is not something that you're doing wrong. It's just something that you could improve on. Towards the beginning of your speech, you said, "Today I want to talk to you about." Nothing wrong with that, but you're making it about you. If you said instead something like, "Here are 3 things you need to know," you're making it about your audience. So just a suggestion, as I say, not wrong, but you can make it a little bit better by doing that. That was it, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, terrific. And while Jim was listening, Adrian was watching this evening. What did you see, Adrian?
What I saw is that some of us have a shadow, including myself. Me and Jimmy both had shadows. There were a few other people that had a dark background, meaning we can't really see your face well. Sunny, Monica, Claudio. Claudio, when you're bending, when you're close, we can see you clearly. But when you're back, it's hard to see, and it has to do with the lighting. The lighting should be behind your camera. That helps. Well, if you have a studio, some people have lighting on the side, both sides, front and back, and then you won't have any shadow at all. But for the rest of us to see your face clear, it does help to have the lighting behind the camera. Also, Joe, if you could close the door behind you, that would be great, because when you're speaking, I know I was focused on what was going on in your place, which is a distraction. So it would help if you were to do that, because when we are online and you're talking for 10 or 15 minutes, people are going to be looking at everything else going on in the background. So that's something that should be to be aware of. Other than that, I thought everybody did a great job. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And, Claudio, I think I have you for, when you're bending over, if you need to eat or drink, feel free to turn off your camera, and then we won't see you. Because if you're on a desktop, you can see everybody at the same time. You can see everything going on. Back to you. Thank you.
All right, terrific. I think Adrian's seen too many movies where some axe murderer would be coming through that door at any moment, which hopefully will not come up. Let's hear from the chat monitor. Michael.
This is a new experience for me because I've never been present in an online club. I think the chat is a great tool. I think in general, you see very positive comments on behalf of everybody, and that's it's very motivational, and it gives you a very good feeling. I think it also gives you all the members the opportunity to give the speakers specific feedback, and I think that's something that is in the traditional clubs is something you don't have so easily as you have here. So I think it's a great tool, and I understand the comment that you can get distracted. You can be looking at the chat instead of perhaps listening to the speakers as attentively as you should be. But on the whole, I think it was a very positive. Thank you, Toastmaster.
All right, very cool. And we must, of course, hear from the dreaded counter. That was Sunny tonight.
Mr. Toastmaster, we'll start with you. You had 3 uhs, 1 so. You said cause we could do more. I just wanted to point that out to you. I caught a couple of more, but you did fine. Norman, you had 2 uhs. Michael, the first time when you were talking with the chat information, you had 2 ahs, 1 Dagmara, 3 ahs, a little more than 5 so's, 1 like, a double clutch, growth. The other word you used a couple of times was and. Jimmy Dent, 3 uhs. I stopped counting after 6 so's, and you had an and. Table topics, Jim Barber, you had 1 ah, 1 so, 1 but, and you had a double clutch of I. I definitely use the word so a lot. I caught myself. Adrian, you had 1 2 so's, and an also, but I sometimes like alsos. Michael, the guest, when you were talking, you had a little more than 6 ahs, 3 a double clutch of I, and. Ryan, 3 ahs, 1 When you were last talking about general evaluator, you had 1 so. Lois had 1 but. I like butts sometimes. Does my Y make my butt look big? I like to joke about that. And that is my odd counters report. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. I was enjoying I somehow. I, Captain. Yes. All right. So, do we have some winners to announce, Mr. Vote Counter? Norman.
Yes, we do. Okay, we have Dagmara was the best speaker. Adrian was the best table topic speaker. He's a very creative accountant. Now, is a creative accountant a good thing? Well, that's up to you. And then Lois was the best evaluator.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop. Oh, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Did I remember to ask for people to vote for evaluator? I'm not sure I did, or ask for a timer's report on that, but apparently it still happened magically in the background anyways.
I helped you out. I put that in the chat box, Mr. Toastmaster.
Right. It's good thing somebody's paying attention. So let me hand our meeting back to our president, Jimmy Dent. Maybe we can get a little bit more feedback from our visitors.
Yes. Okay, we'll start off with Ryan. What did you think of the meeting tonight?
Well, Toastmasters, I felt that the meeting was great. I mean, I'm having a good time and starting to figure out the systems and how you guys run everything, and a little more accustomed to the chat as well. And I look forward to being here next week.
Yeah, great. Glad to have you back. Claudio, what did you think of our meeting tonight?
It was great. Well organized. Everyone sharing experience, giving feedback, and focus. The conversation was very objective. I like that. And it was very clear to me. And I hope I can join the group.
Great. Angela.
Yes.
Tell us what you thought of the meeting.
I thought it was wonderful, lovely, because you're all like supporting each other and a little bit laughing with each other and a little bit, teaching each other, and I'm absorbing all that. So I thought it was great. I'm encouraged. If I'm at a carnival and I don't have any cash on me, though, I'm going to ask all of you to help me get an ice cream cone, and I will either pay you back or pass it forward. So I'm happy to be joining this group. Well, we'll have to talk about that. Thanks.
Okay, and Joe, what did you think of the meeting tonight?
I like the playground factor and the learning that occurs. Things happen that just catch me by surprise. One that stuck out was a reminder of making my speeches about the audience. That's a big point, especially when you're talking to salespeople, and that's what my job is. So I love it. I love the playground factor, and it seems like I've been here twice. This is my second visit, so I like to get on with the membership joining part. Additionally, what else? There was something else I was thinking. Oh, yeah, it's just everyone contributes some way in a surprise on how to present better. The exchanges for the introductions, the formal greetings that come and go. It's just that preparation that can happen here is so special. I've imagined in my mind, I get up in the morning at 4 a.m. and I work out, and then I'll go to the gym in the afternoon at 4 again. And I'm saying, yeah, this is my extra workout, my speaking workout plan. And you just have to do this to master any craft. Yet spending time with the mechanics of it so that when you're out in the space, you can be present with the people and communicate at a very high level. So this is fun.
Thank you. And last, Michael, tell us what you thought of the meeting tonight.
I certainly enjoyed the meeting. I have to be honest, before I actually joined the session today, I had my reservations of how well an online session could work. But I must be honest with you, I think it went very smoothly. I think everybody has an opportunity to participate. There's not much.
Sounds like he froze up.
You lost my.
I'm sorry. Your audio broke up a little bit. Just made a little bandwidth crunch. But you were saying you must be honest with us.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that it really was a worthwhile experience. That's one of the problems, perhaps, that we have doubts, because in Mexico, the bandwidth isn't the best of the world. So very often these are kinds of problems you can run into. But the experience was very good. It went very smoothly. And I really don't see there's much missing compared to an on-site meeting. I think it's a worthwhile option. And I would love to be here next week.
Please come back.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful to have you come back again.
I will be sure to connect up with each one of you. I know Brian and Angela, and let's see, there was a third person that came back. You were the only repeats? Everybody else is new. I will make sure I connect. Oh, and Joe. I knew there was a third one, and Joe. Mm-hmm. So I will connect up with all of you, and hopefully we'll get you set up by the end of tomorrow. Just the president.
All right, terrific.
Okay, thank you. And I have no special announcements tonight. Does anybody else have any special announcements?
I just mentioned let's try and make sure that we get next week's meeting organized a little bit farther ahead. Let me take a peek to see who's down as Toastmaster of the Day next week. Is anybody on the line? Actually, it's you, Jimmy. So if the meeting next week isn't well organized, it's your fault. So.
Yep, I see that.
Okay.
I've got the agenda up for next week.
All right.
So I'll try to get all the roles filled before the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. Tonight we just had a misunderstanding with one of our members who was supposed to be Toastmaster of the Day. So next week we'll do better. And plus we're going to have a ton of new members. So we're going to have all our roles filled going forward. So
David, I noticed we have 2 openings for speaker spots.
Oh, for next week?
All right. Wow. So if somebody needs a longer spot, this is a great time to ask for it.
Yeah, we've only got one speaker scheduled, Rod Moore.
Ooh, I think Ryan is volunteering to be a speaker. Is that right, Ryan? Well, if we get him all set up.
Let me check my manual and then I'll see.
Okay.
All right.
Ryan, did you need a longer speech?
My speech would only be 5 to 7 minutes. I believe it's the pathways one on communication styles.
All right. Well, we can put a placeholder in for you as a guest, and we just want to get your money, basically, Ryan. We want to get your money in your application over the next week. We can make it official, but I'll hold it for you, okay? In the meantime, so that sounds great. All right. Well,
okay,
Jimmy,
you'll take care of it, David. Yeah. You'll hold that slot for him.
Sure.
Great.
Thanks, David.
Okay. Then the other thing I want to remind everybody is David did announce earlier that he's going to give a session on. You want to repeat that? What day that is? You did provide the link to it, and I saw that on Facebook.
It's
I've got to put it on my calendar.
Let's see. WordPress for Toastmaster tutorial, Saturday, August 18th, 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So should be possible for West Coasters to tune in to during the day. And I had given a presentation at the local TLI where people said, it was great, but you went through too much stuff too fast. So I'm going to slow it down and do it over an hour and do it right. So, and you can sign up for that if you look for the WordPress for Toastmasters site. You enter WordPress and Toastmasters into Google, you'll find it. Anyway.
I was at that presentation and David did a fabulous job. In his defense, he only had 30 minutes allotted to give his presentation in. So it wasn't like he crushed it down. He had no choice in the matter.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks all.
Good night, everybody. Hope to see everybody next week.
Bye.